Okay, welcome back to the final part of the Caro Kann section of Dr. Dave Regis's suggested opening repertoire. And against the Caro Kann, as you'll know if you've watched the previous two videos, the good doctor is recommending the Panov attack. So these moves and c4. This is the Panov-Bottvinnik attack. So we've got two rather quick games to see in this, and then two slightly more complicated ones before we wrap up with the Caro Kann. And our first one is from the Argentinian Under-14s Championship from 2003. Why wouldn't it be? Where do you find this stuff, Dave? Anyway, our players are Della Morte and Antunes. So we get to this position, and in this game, black takes, and white recaptures, knight f6, knight f3, and all is well, but black falls for a slightly cheapish, a common but cheapish tactic, as you can see from the bar. And it's this, it looks like the knight's pinned, but you have to be a little careful of the square f7 when you set up this pin. And that's exactly what happens in the game, is f7 gets taken advantage of. So takes with check. And now when you play knight to e5 check, which is what happened in the game, you're also forking the bishop, but you've also uncovered an attack from the queen. So now there's two pieces attacking this bishop and only one defender. So what has happened effectively is that white has just won a pawn with this little tactic. And knight takes, queen takes. And although black played knight c6, it looks as though, yeah, it says black resigns, even though they've played knight c6. So that might be a little bit excessive to resign early. I mean, it's only +3 only. But realistically, white's just going to develop the bishop to defend this pawn. So there's two pieces defending it from the knight and the queen. And then he's just a pawn up, with black having a rotten pawn structure and being a couple of moves behind on development. So there is a big advantage to white. Okay, our second game, we have Agosto against De Andrea. This is the Italian Ladies Championship in 1992. And obviously, so Caro Kann Panov-Bottvinnik. So all of this takes, c4. And in this game, black plays e6, which is perfectly okay. Knight to c3 from white, knight to f6 from black. And then white plays bishop to f4, which is okay. It's probably not the best move. Maybe white plays the London system sometimes. I don't know. There's nothing dramatically wrong with it. It's just not the best option. And black plays bishop to b4. Now this is, it kind of looks like this falls for something because queen here is check and attacks the bishop. But of course, after queen here, black can block the check with the knight, and the knight also defends the bishop. So that doesn't quite do the trick. What instead happens in this position after bishop to b4 is that white takes the knight, because now the knight can't go there, of course, because it doesn't exist. And in the game, in the tournament, black falls for the blunder with rook to b8, queen here, and now the bishop is going to go. Black has to get out of check and nothing's saving the bishop. However, there is a saving move in this position for black instead of playing rook takes bishop. So if you want to just pause for a second and see if you can find the game-saving move that black should have played, feel free. Otherwise, I'll carry on in 3, 2, and 1. And black should put in this move, bishop takes knight check, because now white has to deal with the check, pawn takes, and now we can play rook takes because queen here doesn't really do anything particularly scary. It's a check, and I suppose white can grab the pawn, but as you can see from the computer, the analysis is basically level, so it's no big deal. Okay, we have two more games to go, and both of them finish with a fair amount of analysis to go through, actually, so we might make some use of the computer lines just to help people see what's going on, but maybe not. So where are we? The Russian Cup 1997, Brodsky and Kobalev. Let's see where we go. e4, c6, d4, d5, e takes d5, c takes d5, and c4. And this time knight f6, knight to c3, e6, knight f3, knight c6. And white's the first to break the tension in the middle of the board with the pawn capture. C takes d5 and knight takes d5. So once again, if you've watched the previous two videos, here we are again with the possible, well, actually this time it's not possible, it's happened with the isolated queen's pawn position. And okay, white carries on with bishop to d3. White's quite happy with knight takes, knight pawn takes, by the way. 2 pawns here is quite a nice solid little structure. But black doesn't go for that. Black simply develops with bishop to e7. Castles from white, castles from black, rook e1, and now b6 from black. And this turns out to be a mistake, as you can tell from the bar creeping up to sort of +1 and a bit. So a bit of an advantage for white. And it's a mistake all of revolving around these white squares. But you can see why black wanted the bishop here, because it was stuck. Otherwise, it was entombed, stuck behind its own pawn. So let's see what actually happens. Knight takes d5. So if you play this move, you run into bishop takes pawn check, king takes, and queen here check. King has to move, and you've won a straight pawn as white, and you've got a bit of an advantage. I mean, black's got some compensation, but okay, you're a pawn up, fine. So black didn't want to go in for that, and so played queen takes d5 instead. Fine. But now we've got fun and games on this diagonal, haven't we? We've got a queen and a knight and a rook. And so white's next move, not surprisingly, put the bishop on that diagonal, and the queen has to get out of the way. So queen to d6. And now white spends some time setting up a discovered attack. So this is quite a lengthy plan. And white plays knight to e5 at this point. You can't play knight takes pawn because bishop takes rook. That's bishop takes pawn and will be illegal because you're exposing this rook. Similarly, knight takes knight. So your knight's pinned, basically. And so black decides that they're just going to develop the bishop as planned, and possibly at this point thinks they're doing all right, by the way. Yeah, maybe they are. By the way, actually, out of curiosity, if you play here, is bishop f4 a better move than bishop takes a8? No, they're both equally good. I just spotted something there and wondered. So yeah, bishop to really shouldn't distract myself like that, but still I did. So there we go. So bishop b7, and now we play bishop to f4. And what this does is it puts the bishop on the same line as the queen. So a knight move could potentially be dangerous. And black plays bishop to f6. Now, I wonder what the computer says is best here. Yeah, everything is not great. It's all +2 or above for white. But in our game, black plays bishop to f6. And then the rest of the game kind of plays itself. It's one of those situations. Knight to g6. First of all, it protects the bishop. The bishop attacks the queen, and the knight attacks the rook. So multi-purpose move. Black has to do something. So black played queen takes pawn. Knight takes rook from white, king takes knight, queen takes, bishop takes, rook a to d1, rook d8, and bishop takes c6. And in this position in the real game, black resigned. What are you going to do really as black? You're kind of tied down. You're going to take here, but white can find it very easy just to swap off more pieces. And in fact, bishop to e5 is just killer, really. There's no other way to defend this bishop. And if you move it, for example, bishop takes bishop, well, then you're just losing, and you've got 2 rooks against 2 bishops, and there's only one winner in that situation. So yeah, that was quite a complicated little game, but no harm in looking at a complicated little game. On which note, we've got a complicated little game coming up to finish the video. So we are in Vrnjaka Banja, I think I've said that right, 1983, and it's Francois Campos against Parnovich. Okay, well, we're going to play the first 12, 13 moves straight through, because there's nothing here that will be unexpected. So e4, c6, d4, d5, e takes d5, c takes d5, c4, knight to f6, knight to c3, e6, knight to f3, bishop to e7, cd5, knight d5. There's the isolated queen's pawn again, by the way, as usual. bishop to d3, knight to c6, castles and castles, and a3 from white. And Dr. Dave thinks that white should play rook to e1 first. Fine, I mean, okay, but it doesn't make a lot of difference in the grand scheme of things. Black retreats the knight, and now white plays rook to e1. b6 from black, which is a lot safer this time because there's no pieces on d5, so it's not a big deal. The bishop going here is no big deal. Remember the last game. I just lost my place, bear with me. Oh yes, bishop to c2, white's going to set up a none too subtle threat, bishop to b7, and queen to d3. And here's the none too subtle threat. If this knight is somehow not here anymore, queen h7 is mate. So what happens? Well, black isn't going to lose if black plays the right move, but let's look at all the different options that Dr. Dave gives. So the first possibility is, there's quite a lot for me to read here, so bear with me, is a6. So a6, d5, e takes d5, bishop to g6, bishop to g5, sorry. g6 now is essential because the bishop will take the knight otherwise, and then you'll get mated. So you have to do this to block the diagonal. So g6 is played, and then rook takes e7. And why that's rather unpleasant is basically two things. If knight takes, then bishop takes, and that's just horrible. And if the queen takes, well, then this knight is pinned, and you'll just go knight d5, and that isn't very pretty either. Probably knight takes knight check could be coming, or bishop takes knight threatening the queen. Yeah, it's not very pleasant. So we can rule out a6. The next suggestion from Dr. Dave is rook to c8, but he says that runs into d5 and isn't very pretty either, although it's not awful, is it? I mean, maybe that's +1. Okay, it's not great, but okay, it's not too disastrous. So maybe you could do that. Queen to d7 is given as a possibility, but once again, d5, and this time it's much, much stronger. Look, pawn takes d5, bishop to g5, same idea, try and get this knight off of this square. G6 has to be played, same reason as before. And then once again, rook takes e7, and you've got basically back where we were a minute ago. The same ideas, queen takes, knight d5. Yeah, not very good. White is very happy with life. Okay. The next possibility given is queen to c8. Okay, so if queen to c8, bishop g5 maybe straight away. Yeah, that's given by both Dave and the computer. And then what are you going to do? Well, bishop a6 is a clever try. That's the point of putting the queen here, is now you can threaten the white queen, which is very, very clever. But queen e3, and we just have a position that's just better for white. It's not checkmate or anything, but it's just nice. You've got everything you want, really. It's why it's nearly +2. So, okay, well, let's go back to that position again. Queen to d6. Now, this is just given as a complete blunder by Dr. Dave. If pawn forward takes, and now bishop g5. And yeah, same problem again. No good. The best you're going to do is g6. And here it goes again. Rook takes e7. Knight takes e7 and knight b5. And things are not looking terribly pretty. What's black going to do with all of this? Let's just play a move. Let's say queen c6. Knight here attacks the queen again. Suddenly she can't stay in contact with this knight. Bishop takes, knight's coming. It's just, yeah, not very nice at all. Okay, I think we've got some other tries. We've got rook to e8. And once again, here it comes, d5, same move every time. Remember what I've said about isolated queen's pawn positions? If you can successfully play d5, you're probably in pretty good shape. E takes d5, bishop g5, same idea. But this time, knight can get in the way, you can block. Well, knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes. So the mate threat is there again. g6 has to be played. And queen h4 is not very nice. Not very nice at all. You've got 3 pieces, 1, 2, 3 pieces attacking this bishop. The bishop can't really move because it's pinned. If you play bishop takes g5, knight takes g5, and suddenly how are you going to stop this threat? Well, you're probably going to play here. White will come back at you with another threat here, and you've got to protect. I'm guessing the computer will say queen d7. Okay, well, it's the second best move. But yeah, definitely advantage to white with this ongoing attack. The best thing that black can do actually in this position when we get here, the absolute best move for black is probably just to block, although the computer's, oh, here we go. I was going to say g6. Yeah, I was going to say it must be just a block, and it is. It took a while for it to get there, but it's just to play g6 and just block all of this nonsense straight away. And then you've got a typical position with a bit of an advantage for white, but nothing too dramatic. Wow, nice and complicated stuff there to finish. Okay, that's it for the Caro Kann defense. We will next be moving on to the Alekhine defense. And this one isn't seen that often at master level play anymore, but I suspect at junior and beginner level, it probably will be quite common because junior players might think, yeah, let's get my knight developed. Why not? So that's where we're going to go next, the Alekhine defense. And thanks for watching. See you next time.